Welcome to Thrones and Scones. I tried to sound... It's a Monday morning. It's your weekday morning podcast where we talk Game of Thrones over breakfast. Tony Hans and Jeremy in with you today, kicking off the week and hitting Season 3, Episode 1, Valadohires. And blueberry for what must be like the 8th time. We promise they're different blueberry scones. But yeah, anyway, we'll get to that. Welcome back, guys. We're kicking off Season 3. How are we feeling? Starting off on a good note. I think a better episode than Season 2, Episode 1.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. Totally agree. We
do get some character introductions in this sense, and this is where things really start to pick up beyond the wall. Jon Snow... Oh, should I wiki?
Yeah, hit me with that wiki.
Well, okay, again,
just to stall...
I don't have it.
I'm going to give you my just first impressions of Season 3, Episode 1. I'm just happy to be out of fucking Karth.
Hallelujah. All right. Jon is brought before Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, while the Night's Watch survivors retreat south. In King's Landing, Tyrion asks for his reward for getting his face cut in half. Littlefinger offers Sansa a way out, and Cersei hosts a dinner for the royal family. Dany sails into Slaver's Bay. Lots of that happens. Yes, we are out of Karth, and as I kind of hinted and touched on in the bonus episode, things really pick up for Daenerys very quickly in the next few episodes.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that now Tyrion is no longer the hand. Tywin has taken over that position, and you start to really see Tywin kind of like really coming into what we know him as, right? His decisions, how he, very similar to when he was controlling the armies, he wants to see this kingdom run his way with his family. And this episode when Tyrion comes to him, I don't, if you haven't gotten the sense that he hates his son, you really get that quite clear this time.
And maybe an odd choice, but I think it's my favorite moment of the show, Tyrion and Tywin's conversation. Tyrion basically comes to Tywin and says...
Tywin
and says, hey,
please,
look,
sir, more porridge.
I did what you asked. I showed up. I ruled in your stead. I saved this city. And all I want is what should already be promised to me. Of course, Casterly Rock, Tywin's ancestral seat for House Lannister, which would normally go to his eldest heir. But Jaime forsooketh all land and forsucketh upon his sister
too much. That's what Cersei did for him. Yeah. She forsooked him.
And so he joined the Kingsguard and he relinquished his rights to it. And so since it does not fall to a female heir unless necessity requires it, Tyrion would be the rightful inheritor of it. And it's my favorite moment because, again, we hear a lot about Tywin. We do get to see him being a bit more brutal in the last season. But here's the first moment where you're just like, this dude blindly hates Tyrion. He comes out now that he's around more of his family, now that he's in a better position for himself. He's not really leaning on the guy anymore. And he straight up says, like, hey, the only reason you're alive is because I can't prove that you aren't my kid.
Yeah.
But don't you dare ever go talking about your birthright again. You who killed your mother just to come into this. Like, this is the Tywin Lannister we've really heard about. And it's methodical, it's brutal. And I like that it really kind of set him up as this archetypal villain here.
Yeah. Tywin gets pretty dark pretty quick in this season compared to the last. In the last season, you really, you've heard about him being this terrible guy and everything, but Tywin almost comes off as kind of understandable, kind of likable, just put into this position that's very challenging. He's got, for the most part, kind of shitty kids. and you're kind of starting in last season when you see him, like, you're kind of starting to wonder, like, oh, this guy, maybe we got to cut him a little break, and then he really comes out of his shell in this season, and we start to see a little bit more of his evil side. That's for sure.
Indeed. We left last season with a moment that I thought was very odd, leaving Samuel Tarly alive, the White Walkers. So we open this season with him running through snow. He comes across a Night's Watch guy kneeling down. Oh, but wait, he doesn't have a head. It's in his hands. Oh, my God. That dude was killed, but Sam was left alive. Okay, more questions than answers. But then we go on. He meets up with the band of Night's Watch people that are left. And the first thing that the Lord Commander says to him is, Tarly, did you send the ravens? Look at me, Tarly.
Look
Did you send the ravens? And really obsessed with the ravens. But he knew Sam was out with Gren and Pip. They were hunting for poop to build fires. And then the White Walkers, it's like, was Sam supposed to go back to camp to send these ravens? Like, I don't know what that guy wanted from him.
So I was wondering, it's like, where is he getting these ravens from if he's out there? It was kind of an odd thing. And the other part I thought that was kind of weird is, is this where the dire wolf, is that where the saves him? Is that where it saves Sam?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought the dire wolf was following John still.
The last we saw of Ghost, he kind of just went off when Corin and John and the rest were ranging off.
Okay.
He just kind of went over a ridge, and Corin said, like, Direwolf's not a pet or something.
Okay.
His element out here.
I don't know why. I just couldn't remember where the dog or where the wolf was, but it was just kind of one of those weird moments.
He got too expensive for the rest of the season.
Too expensive, yeah.
ran out of that CGI money.
CGI money.
That's what really happens out there. And then the real stuff. I mean, that's of course, we get to watch them walk for a while after that. But then we get introduced to Tormund Giantsbane and the King Beyond the Wall, Mance Rayder.
Yeah,
Good characters.
Yeah, this our first giant I was seeing.
That's true.
Series, yeah.
The first giant. I don't mean to sit here and say that all giants look the same, but they kind of do. And I don't know if this is Wun, the one that gets really popular later on. But he's a tall feller.
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah, building the camp, right? Shoving those, were they bones or trees? I can't remember what they were, into the ground to build something.
Yeah.
John's just staring at him. You ever see a giant before? It's your first?
So this is another little interesting... In this season and the next, we'll really start to make our divergences from the books and set our own storylines. Just kind of a thing that I thought was fun. In the books, Mance Rayder tells John a story when they meet about how they've met before. And it turns out Mance Rayder was basically in disguise south of the Wall at Winterfell for a party. And him and John, as a child, had like conversations and stuff and talked blah, 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 blah. And the way that John got into his good graces and convinced him that, he was here because he wanted to be here was like him saying, oh, you were at this party. Did you see where they sat the bastard? And it was like, kind of John's never been free. He's always kind of had this shitty destiny, and now he wants to kind of make it on his own, which I think it's a lot to set up in an episode like this. It seems very coincidental, but did you feel that John's actual thing that he did here, where he's just kind of
kills Corin and then
kills Corin,
he's in,
and then he's in? I mean, he does still have to answer to Mance, but I don't know if I buy it as much, which could be a fair plot telling point, because I don't know. Do you guys think that Mance buys it?
Yeah, I still think there's obviously still concern that he's not being truthful, and I think Ygritte has more of a reason why he's even, she even says, you saved my life, I've saved yours now. And then as we see in the future kind of episodes, she knows, she gets this. She's like, you may not be loyal to them, but you'll be loyal to me. And as long as you're loyal to me, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Because I think that's kind of the point of all of the clans above the wall. It's like, hey, we're all free. We all kind of live on these haphazard rules, and we're only surviving as a larger group because we have to.
Yeah, and I think that, Tony, the point you made, to me, that makes more sense. Again, I haven't read the books. I didn't know any of that. But that story, to me, makes much more sense than the story we get in the show, because it just seems too convenient that they're all like, oh, okay, yeah, you're in,
You're in.
because all we know about the wildlings really so far is that they're pretty vicious. They'll kill anybody. They even say that they'll pretty much kill anybody, and they're not. It's just weird that John can just kind of walk in and all of a sudden be a part of this. And I hate to do this, but to jump a couple episodes in, even Tormund, in a couple episodes, in like 2 episodes, Tormund's like, I like you, kid, but you lie to me, I'll fucking kill you. And it's like, why does Tormund like him? Like, they've known each other for like a couple, they've known each other for what, it's to us only a couple episodes, and he's already like, I love you, brother. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's instant camaraderie, I suppose.
It's fast.
Tormund Giantsbane, again, I don't mean to just direct everything to the books, but my gosh, he would be all of our favorite characters if he was a direct interpretation, because the amount of dick jokes that Tormund makes in the books, it's like every other sentence out of his mouth. I think at one point he's telling the story about how he was having sex with this woman, but it ended up being like a bear, and it bit half of his dick off, and now it's only twice as big as everyone else's or something like that. Like, it's a great story, and he really only makes a couple in the show that we can treasure. But I like Tormund a lot.
Yeah, I think I like him in the show. Even I'm really starting to think I got to read these books, man.
You gotta read it. I mean,
yeah. So this is
yeah.
book 3 now, right? Into book 2.
I was trying to remember that because they split at one point.
Yeah.
Book 1 was season 1, the entire thing.
Yeah.
Let me look this up.
I'm pretty sure this is the end of book 2, but it may be book 3. But yeah, this is where we are. And I wouldn't tell you to just start reading book 3, but I mean, I guess you could do that.
Don't do that. No, you'd be so lost.
Yeah. What was the other thing that I thought? I mean, the stuff about...
Okay, so...
Is it?
I'll hit you real quick here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, season 1 is book 1.
Okay.
Season 2 is book 2. Season 3 and season 4 are book 3. So, they're split.
Okay.
And then it's complicated because book 4 and book 5 happen simultaneously, just from different people's perspectives. So season 5 and 6 are both of those books split up, but also rapidly divergent.
And that's it, right?
And that's all so then season 7 and season 8 are unpublished.
Or unpublished, yep.
Uncharted territory there.
And separate stories now, correct? Like they're going to have different endings, supposedly?
I think that is... that is what's been set up. And whether or not that's just to lead people on or what, I'm not sure. Getting very much ahead of ourselves. As far as just opening up with season 3 here, what were your guys' favorite parts?
For me, it is actually John's story. Like I talked prior how I felt a little slow, and now he's starting to become more interesting. And I also liked at Aaron Hall with Aaron
Carter's Hall.
Aaron Carter with Rob. I really enjoyed this. So this is now with the my notes, I can't read it because I'm struggling. Come back to me in 1 minute. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, my favorite part, hands down, this episode. He did me a little. I think one of these episodes back, I don't know if it was early season 2, maybe. He did me a little wrong. Could have been the end of season 1. Can't remember. We get our Lord Barristan back.
Yes, indeed.
It was a sweet moment. Little surprise moment at the end of the episode.
He shows up and saves Daenerys from a would-be assassin.
Yeah.
And then pledges Pledges himself. I'm just gonna stop apologizing because it's probably more annoying than me interrupting. So actually, in Barristan, same thing happens in the books. Barristan does this thing, saves Daenerys. Doesn't use a sword, uses a stick, which is important later. But does not reveal himself for a while. It's basically until he earns his trust, or earns her trust, does he then reveal himself and pledge his actual sword, saying that he's like forgone drawing a sword until he could be regained of his honor, as it were. So it's been different. Him presenting himself right away. Dany's kind of all on board, and Jorah is nervous. Rightfully so, because Barristan Selmy knows what Jorah did.
Yeah.
And that's gonna play a part for sure. As for Dany's assassin, do you guys have any opinions about this little girl that tried to kill her? Do you think it's a faceless person? Do you think that it's just somebody the warlock sent? Do you think that maybe she's a warlock? I don't know.
Yeah, what the hell was up with that little evil child thing? It was weird.
It looks
Hiss.
like the teeth being kind of cut up like the who was the warlock? Pri?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember if they say this in the book or if they mention this later that it's something like that. Is that connected?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't really know where that just kind of came out of left field.
Well, the
dragons are
fact that she jumps and disappears, suggesting maybe it is like a clone or a mirage or whatever in that sense. It could be that as well.
Yeah. As Daenerys is sailing to Slaver's Bay, we get to see the dragons again. They're a little bit bigger.
A little bit.
And they fish.
And cook their own food still. What's up?
Yeah. Do you think that fire-breathing animals would be one to dive bomb the ocean? I feel like no. Also, if that is behavior that they have in their evolutionary mind, do the big ones do it? And do they come up with like dolphins? I'd like to know, because we never get to see it after
Everyone
this
knows that dolphins and dragons are just, they're like a generation separated. That's it. So
Oh, yeah. They're very close.
Yeah,
ancestors, very common.
to me, the whole like water beats fire thing kicks in here. Like, how long after the dragon's underwater is he limited from breathing fire? Can he breathe fire underwater? I mean, obviously, I would imagine no. I don't know.
It's true. This is the age-old question. How do dragons breathe fire? Is there internal fire inside of them, Pokemon style? Is there ignitable liquid that connects with some sort of sparking mechanism, or another combustible liquid that shoots out in a separate tube?
That's a good point.
It's a
Yeah,
great
so
question.
Like
if
you're
it's
saying,
if it's a belly thing, then
kind of a-
they could do that, right?
I think so.
I'm thinking
Because-
maybe some sort of chemical reaction where they got two liquids that come out of two different like secretory mechanisms that when converge turn into fire and combust.
So it's all chemical. There's
Yeah, it's all
actually no
chemical.
spark. There's
all
no
chemical.
spark. Yeah.
I think that,
Using the reference of How to Train a Dragon, we have the two-headed dragon that has the one head that makes the gas and the one head that makes the spark, which would be to say that there needs to be a physical, actual reaction instead of like more of a chemical. But yeah, I'm trying to think of the book series Aragon. I think that book, the dragon has the fire belly, and that's kind of like a furnace where it started, so they can breathe fire in
that's the
water.
Lord of the Rings thing too.
Is it? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So
My mechanism is similar to that that beetle, right? That like shits acid or something. It's like it's got the two. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
The two. I think it's got like the two chambers, and then when they converge the two liquids, it turns into some like super nasty acid.
Hell
It might spit it. I'm not sure.
no, I think the
Comes out one
analytic
of
acid
I really
is
hope
much
it
more
shoots it.
accurate.
Comes out one of the ends. What's the name of that beetle? I just saw it on some documentary I was watching.
I couldn't tell you.
Bombardier beetle. I had to Google it.
Bombardier. Somebody who might looks like they got hit by some acid shit It must suck to be Sir Davos, waking up on that rock. I mean, it's super dry here. I'm running this humidifier like crazy. I've got some dry patches of skin that are driving me insane. Davos is like the splotchiest person. Like, there's just
He's crusty.
open, like his body is chapped, and it just looks like the worst thing ever. And he gets rescued. Davos, a king's man to the end. He basically gets picked up by these guys, and they're like, "Which king did you serve?" And he's in the Blackwater, right outside of King's Landing. Yeah. It would be probably smarter to say Joffrey, probably more likely, but he gives it to Stannis.
He gives it to Stannis, yep.
He gets rewarded for that by then going and getting arrested by Stannis for
Directly
trying to
to
kill
prison.
Melisandre. Yeah. Go to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect the dead remains of your son or $200.
We actually get to Slaver's Bay in this episode too, right?
We do, and we get to see the Unsullied. We get to see one of them lose a nipple,
Yes.
which was
is this
a moment.
Is that this episode? I don't think I wrote that down. So
We get to meet and I can't remember his name. We get to meet the master of the
the
Unsullied.
slave master.
Grand
Slave
Master
Master.
Krasnitz.
Yeah, and he's pretty funny dude. Kind of a dick.
Already a nice dick.
Basically, just every other word is calling Daenerys a ignorant slut.
In Valyrian, of course.
In Valyrian, of course.
Yeah. So how could she possibly?
She takes it so stoically.
I like at one point, and I don't know if it's this episode or the next, but when Missandei is translating, he says, "Tell her something," and she looks at him like, "Should I?" And he goes like, "No, like obviously don't tell her that." That's stuff, and I don't really remember. Again, in my head, this is way later. Like the stuff that's about to play out in Slaver's Bay. Some of my favorite Daenerys moments.
Yeah, it's really good.
Karth sucked, but right now,
This
Daenerys
is good.
Golden for me.
Yeah, and I agree actually, because everything I think I'm thinking of is like the next is probably the third or fourth episode where it gets really good, but it was enjoyable. Yeah. So speaking of the whole build, buy your army kind of thing, do you think? She obviously has this I'm gonna free these slaves moment, but then she keeps that slave wand, right? And especially in this episode, still being called like the master kind of idea, right? Or is that maybe the next one?
What are you talking about? You're miles ahead of yourself.
Yeah, you're
am
way
I?
ahead.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Episodes and episodes ahead. And incorrect.
And incorrect, yeah.
Does she? I thought she
chucks
just-
it.
I have a
No,
question.
she chucks it.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Go ahead.
For Tony specifically.
Yes, Daddy.
And you mentioned this earlier, I think right away, early episodes of season 1. You're not a big fan of Jorah Mormont.
I'm not the biggest fan of...
Tell me why.
Of Jorah Mormont. Because I think he gets in the way of better characters. I think Jorah Mormont is problematic for Barristan Selmy right now. I think he's really kind of... And it ends up being a little bit of his downfall in the sense that we know him. Not to a crazy level. But I think Jorah just kind of gets... It cheapens Dany's story a little bit for me. Because looking way, way, way down the line, they've just kind of built up this relationship to where, she trusts him and she has this very deep bond with him. And for him, obviously, it goes... he loves her. And read into that whatever you want. He loves Daenerys, and it drives a wedge in, but I just don't ever think it's really set up enough on her end to prompt reactions. Again, I don't think the actor's bad. The characters just never really resonated with me in the books or in the show.
Really? That's interesting. I agree with you on a couple things. I do think he does get in the way of some really cool characters and some interesting characters. I'm a big fan of Barristan in this season and moving forward. And I've liked the character throughout the series, which is why the only time I think I've really talked about him is when I was kind of talking a little trash. When he didn't stand up when the whole, those are the king's words, moment. That part upset me a little bit, but I think it only upset me so much because I am a Barristan fan.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you on that point, definitely. But the rest of Jorah's story arc and all of his, I don't know, there's something about him. He just comes off, and maybe it's the actor, probably, but he just comes off as a super likable dude. I don't know. I'm a big Jorah fan. Jenna's she really likes Jorah too. So that's why I was just like, there's nothing about him that really makes me dislike him. And I understand that he was, he was selling slaves. He had this issue, dishonorable in Westeros. Came over to Essos with some not great intentions.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's really backstory because we never really see him play any of that out to any extent, and he almost immediately flips. And then, he serves Daenerys pretty well. Like, he doesn't really do anything bad for me, at least up to this point. And even, I'm trying to think moving forward, not so much. But, yeah, I don't know. I can't really remember the rest of the series too much as far as his story arc goes, other than the most recent, obviously. But
Now,
yeah, I don't know. There's something about him I really like, and like I said, Jenna likes him too. That's why I was curious.
let me ask you, are you a Daenerys fan?
I am.
Jeremy?
Currently or overall?
Just overall.
Yes.
Okay. See, this might play into it as well. I'm not a big fan of Daenerys. I don't dislike her as a character, but like as far as I think most people, she's like top 3 in Game of Thrones characters. Like Daenerys, she's certainly the most recognizable Game of Thrones character. Daenerys does not resonate with me, and I think the fact that Jorah turns every other conversation they have into this weird soap opera thing prevents her from getting to a position where I want to see her. And that's why I dislike Jorah. So if you like the spot that Daenerys is in, I think that would probably hit me a little less and I wouldn't mind as much. So I just think that he kind of pulls her development down a little bit. But as far as his motivations and everything, what you're saying, I get him. I get his purpose. It just never quite hits on the emotional level I want it to.
Yeah, and I think the only thing about Jorah's storyline that I wish was a bit different, which I think in the series, they sure seem to try and play it down quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish they would have just left the whole fact about him like being in love with her out.
I was just kind of wish that.
I wish they would just have him be like he's just a loyal dude. Like he really does believe in her as being the best queen or the best ruler for all of the lands or whatever, and just leave the whole love thing out because I think. I mean, it depthens his character a little bit, but it almost like it does take away from, you never know what his true intentions are. And I don't think that he needed that. I think he would have been a good character without that.
It's certainly his flaw. And, every character needs that. But I agree with you in that it would be less... That's where all of his cringe comes from.
Yeah.
are his pining affections toward Daenerys. Moving across to, I think, our other only current queen. Do they only know how to film Cersei at dinner? I'm pretty sure they only know how to film Cersei at dinner.
She's always drinking something.
Yeah. She's only available to film at night, so they're like, all right, it's dinner again. Her and Joffrey have the most awkward supper with Marjorie and Loras. Lots of passive-aggressive things being slung one way or the other. It's
because this is where we're seeing Marjorie's, where she's going out to the city, helping, hanging out with the poor and the weak, and Cersei's always like, they just tried to kill us. Why would you be out there? She's like, there's more ways, to kind of get your people to love you and to rule a kingdom. And I think, Cersei clearly hates her because that's very apparent that maybe there is another way, and she doesn't understand that because that's not the family way with the Lannisters.
Yeah.
We are finding out that the family way with the Lannisters is losing your hair color, as we've already alluded to. That's starting to happen for Tyrion, for Jaime as well. Although I did notice, maybe it was just a trick of the light or something, but in this episode, at least, Sansa has become like uber ginger. She's like crazy redhead all of a sudden. It's so bright. That's a fresh bottle, I think, that they're working with over there.
It's more than just highlights.
Yeah, it's more. It's just certainly more than just highlights.
Some low lights now and there.
Yeah. Hair color is just amorphous in Westeros.
As for our good, bad, and the jugglies from this scene, we only had one. It was pretty early on in the episode with Bronn getting maybe his reward for fighting as hard as he did. Lovely little prostitute who wants to see how skilled he is with his teeth. And we never get to see that because he gets interrupted by Pod.
And I think just because we don't discriminate here on Thrones and Scones,
Would you know?
obviously, Bronn's got his shirt off. In this
He
scene
does.
as well. So
That's true. We see several shirtless men in this episode. Thankfully, Bronn did not get his nipple cut off.
thankfully,
Because I did not like watching a nipple being cut off. But,
not as much as you'd think, right?
yeah. I thought, it was on my bucket list, but I crossed it off.
And then you're like, well, I could have
Reluctantly.
been okay with not watching that. Yeah.
Not as satisfying as one might expect. Any other big things you guys want to hit on before I tell you all about this scone that I've been munching on that maybe you've been able to hear?
I think that's it. I think that's all. So tell me about that scone, Tony. Hit me with it.
Well, even though Jeremy has stolen them all out from under me, this one is from Panera. It's, I think, the last one we have of their rundown. No, hold
No,
on.
they have another one.
I think it's the last one that they have of their offerings. It's good. It's good.
All right.
Well,
Well, just to tease a little bit, next scone coming up, my wonderful girlfriend Jenna baked some fresh scones, so we'll be sharing that in the next episode.
Yeah.
The first foray into baked goods.
When she came in while we're talking, it was like shaking the bags behind you. The look of pure joy because she realized the scones are amazing.
Yeah, she's really come around to the scones. Although she did say the savory scone was, I don't want to misquote her, absolutely the worst thing she's ever eaten.
Well, we're looking forward to what we think of. You'll have to have her in the room as you take your first bite, and if it's bad, well, we'll just have to roll with that and see what great
maybe we'll
content
do-
it brings.
maybe we'll
Or
do a
she
little
can do
special
the own
review.
review.
I was gonna say maybe we'll do a little special review. We'll get a little tandem review. Jenna and I reviewing the scone at the same time.
I like this. That'll be tomorrow, as you can join us again as we tackle Season 3, Episode 2. In the meantime, you want to hit us up on social media. All the links to everything can be found up at thronesandscones.com. You down with GOT?
Yeah, you know me.
For some reason, this is not like a particularly dense scone, but it has really impeded my ability to speak.
So saying, you're like
Normally I can do this
dedicated.
balancing act, but
You're
it's like just
shoving it
tacky
in.
enough.
I feel bad for like the 10 people that listen to our podcast and just basically hear our like dry ass chewing on these scones.
I gotta give. I'm a little upset now, Jeremy, that you stole all the Panera Bread ones, because thus far I've had a couple Starbucks ones and was not impressed with the just crap that they were giving me. So I was like,
I
maybe
didn't even know
chain
Starbucks
scones are
made
not the way to
scones.
go. But these Panera ones, this blueberry one is solid. I mean,
Yeah, but they changed it now. Aren't they round now? Aren't they the round?
They're
Or they
just
used
round, yeah.
they used to be more the traditional cut or whatever.
actually, the original scones were round, and Americans made them triangular. Thank you.
They were like a biscuit, but not a biscuit.
So let me ask this. What actually is the difference between a scone and a biscuit?
I don't know. I've been trying to get this answer out of Jeremy for the whole podcast.
Is it the sweetness?
No, because they're savory scones, so that isn't.
I think for
or
all
maybe
intents
that
and
is
purposes, like a traditional British scone is what we call a biscuit because
Right.
they call cookies biscuits.
That's interesting.
Not sure.
What's the difference? In case you guys were curious as to what Google thinks is important, what's the difference between stock and broth, jelly and jam, bourbon and whiskey?
What's the difference between jelly and jam? It's a good joke.
I can't jelly my fist into your ass.
And by good joke, I mean it's a joke.
It's the first time I've heard that one.
And I've heard the punchline multiple ways. In the punchlines, fist can really be replaced with really any object.